Thank you, Gahirdach. Minister, since 2012, there's been €6.3 billion brought forward in supplementary estimates. This is the time of year they're normally brought forward. What is the anticipated figure for this year? What is the timeline for introducing those estimates? And in particular, what is the forecasted supplementary for the Department of Health?
Good morning. Expenditure Report 2020 outlined the requirement for supplementary estimates for a number of votes in 2019 as a result of policy decisions which included in relation to the provision of the 100% Christmas bonus and expenditure pressures, in particular in the health sector. At that point, it was estimated that the aggregate amount required for supplementary estimates would be approximately €660 million. At this week's government meeting, 11 of those were agreed. With the agreement of the Business Committee, it is proposed that these supplementary estimates will be presented to Dáil Éireann next week for referral to the relevant committee before returning to the Dáil to be voted on in December. Of these, 8 are substantive, referring to the Chief State Solicitor's Office, Finance, and Garda Síochána, Justice and Equality, Transport, Army Pensions, Employment Affairs and Social Protection, and Children and Youth Affairs. The remaining 3 are technical, foreign affairs and trade, communications and business. The total amount being sought in these supplementary estimates is €204 million. The expenditure report outlined there will be a requirement for supplementary estimates in health, education and to fund Brexit-related expenditure to ensure that the relevant authorities would be in a position to carry out the necessary compliance checks at ports and Dublin Airport. The aggregate amount in the expenditure report across these headings was €450 million. It is planned to seek government agreement for presentation of these supplementary estimates next week when the amounts required are finalised. In addition, any further supplementary estimates which would be of a minor or technical nature would also be finalised for next week. As set out in the expenditure report, the main driver refers to the projected outturn is in relation to the Department of Health. The budget challenges for the health sector relate to demand-led pressures in key service areas, including in acute hospitals in both pay and non-pay, disabilities, older persons, high-tech drugs, state claims and pension budget lines.
Deputy Calleary.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for that answer. It's just to confirm that you have approved for discussion at committee 11 estimates, including one for Garda Síochána. Can you give a figure on that one at the moment, and will that have operational impact between now and Christmas, in particular looking at the questions around the border area? Secondly, in relation to the Department of Health, the initial figures being suggested are an estimate of around 335 million of a supplementary. Is that still the figure? And does that supplementary include the extra money that's being announced today, 27 million, for the so-called winter initiative? Is that included in 335 million? And given that there is an effective moratorium in place on recruitment in the health service at the moment, and I know the government says there isn't, but it's very clear from talking to anybody working in the health service that there is effectively, when only one person has sanction on appointments in the entire service, that is a moratorium in another name. What level of appointments are going to be made in January to try and address the very serious pressures on waiting lists and on services around the country at the moment?
Minister. Deputy Calleary. If I give a further context about where we are with the supplementary estimates, while they continue to be of a level that I want to see reduced further, they are significantly lower than where we were a year ago, because as I acknowledged a year ago, from September onwards, a number of things did happen in this area that I said we would not repeat again, and we have not. And then furthermore, the supplementary estimates for this year have been brought into our budget day package for next year as opposed to on top of it. And these supplementary estimates, excluding 1 or 2 technical matters, are in line with what I indicated on budget day. To answer your questions, Deputy, the supplementary estimates for Garda Síochána is €17.5 million. This is a substantive supplementary estimate as opposed to a technical one, and it's required to meet the Garda overtime costs that accrued from the visits of the US President and Vice President. It doesn't have any operational consequence. It's paying for activity that's already happened. In relation to health, yes, it is in line with what I indicated on Budget Day. There's no change beyond that. There's not a moratorium in place, Deputy. What is in place is that posts that have to be filled or recruited for are ones that have to be budgeted, are ones that are budgeted for.
Quick supplementary.
So, Mr. 335 million figure as a supplementary for health is still the figure. That will be taken off next year's health budget. So the parroting by the government of an increase in the health budget isn't exactly true. And secondly, I'll give you an example of what you say isn't a moratorium, where an occupational therapist in early intervention services goes on maternity leave, something that is very planned, and the HSE put in writing to me that they do not have the resources to cover maternity leave. That, Minister, is a moratorium on recruitment, something that is planned, something that was envisaged. They do not have the resources to cover maternity leave, and that then is impacting on children who need early intervention at the very earliest stages of their lives. That, Minister, is a moratorium.
So very quickly, time's running out.
Thank you. The supplementary estimate, which your final question didn't touched on, does include some funding for the One for Initiative plan, just to clarify that, because you put that question to me. What we are simply ensuring is that within the health service, that we are recruiting for posts for which there is a budget for. The total amount of funding that is available to the Department of Health at the moment is at a very, very high level of €17.4 billion. There will be additional recruitment taking place next year due to the additional funding that they have received. For you to say, Deputy, that we are taking the supplementary estimates out of the additional funding that we are making available for next year, what I'm looking to do is do a better job of responding back to the charge that was made against me by the Fiscal Advisory Council next year, of ensuring that if we put extra money into the health service for this year, it is funded properly for next year.